Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to Afterburner. I'm Bill Whittle. Well, wrapped in the loving and protective arms of Barack Obama's compliant, adoring media, it looks like Hillary Clinton and her Benghazi debacle will join Eric Holder and his fast and furious murder spree. In other words, she'll get away with it. Well, of course she will. You know, when asked about the details of the murder of a U.S. ambassador, Secretary of State Clinton exploded, "What difference does it make?" Well, first of all, I imagine it makes some difference to the families of Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Glenn Doherty, and Tyrone Woods. I imagine they, not to mention the rest of this great unwashed, ungrateful masses that were formerly known as the United States citizens that this woman presumably works for, would like to know if it would have made a difference if Mrs. Clinton's State Department had responded to the repeated requests for additional security. I think it would have made a difference for the two brave men that fought for 6 hours to know whether or not they were fighting until help arrived or simply giving their lives to buy time for the president, presumably with the assent or certainly at least the acquiescence of Secretary Clinton, to make the gutsy call to order those helicopters to stand down and courageously make the tough presidential decision to go back to sleep. What difference does it make? Well, I imagine it makes a difference to this man. This is a filmmaker, not Steven Spielberg. Of course, Steven Spielberg is a multimillionaire donor to the Democratic Party. He can make any movie he wants to. That's his right as an American citizen with political connections. No, this poor schmuck doesn't know anyone, so he's in jail now because Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama blamed the entire Benghazi massacre not on al-Qaeda, but on a mob of Muslims who were justifiably, in the president's view, irate over a film made by this man and seen by no one. It was perhaps the worst movie ever made. This man is, as I write this, still rotting in a dungeon somewhere, a political prisoner to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's cover-up of the fact that a U.S. consulate was attacked on September 11th and that Obama's re-election demanded that he be seen to have eliminated al-Qaeda as a threat. I think it makes a difference to this man that Clinton and Obama blamed this debacle on him and his pathetic movie. You see, this poor guy had the temerity to think that as an American citizen, he had the right to speak his own mind freely and make whatever damn movie he wanted to. No. That right, you see, is reserved only for the liberal Obama donors who fetishize gun violence, because movies have no effect at all on people when they make the movies. Oh, by the way, many days after the events in Benghazi and well after the facts on the ground were known to both him and the Secretary of State, the President of the United States of America went before the United Nations and said, quote, "The future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam." So let's parse that sentence, shall we? My understanding of the First Amendment is that I have a right to say whatever I wish about religion, even disrespectful things. And it doesn't have to be high art either, like putting a crucifix in a jar of urine and bowing down and worshiping that as the truest test of the First Amendment, which it might well, in fact, be. So, the President of the United States, who swore an oath to defend the Constitution, from which the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights protects my right to freedom of expression, tells the world the future does not belong to those of us who wish to speak our minds, like that friendless, deluded filmmaker. On the contrary, if the future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam, we can then infer from the President that the future does in fact belong to those who don't. People who don't slander the Prophet are known as Muslims. So, the future must not belong to those who wish to speak their mind freely. It must belong to the Muslims. Thank you, Mr. President of the United States of America. Yeah, what difference does it make? Oh, and finally, we have as a replacement for outgoing Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, the stainless John Kerry, a man who colluded with the Vietnamese enemy in uniform in time of war, a man whose Winter Soldier testimony slandered an entire generation of brave and patriotic fellow soldiers, a man who threw his medals over the fence at the White House to protest his own military service, a man whose commendations for that service are suspect to say the least. A man who took the side of the enemy of the United States in time of war is now the head diplomat of the President of the United States, who said that the future must not belong to those that speak their minds. But what difference could that make?